Family. Family is there for you through thick and thin, through all of your highest highs and lowest lows. Whether that be by blood or by choice, it's family. And after my 22 years on this earth, I would have never imagined that an inanimate object would be in this same category, let alone to think tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people would come along this journey with me. 42 videos, over 100,000 views, one car, and countless memories and lessons. Is this what having a kid is like? I have learned so much in my time of owning this car. And I hope, like I say at the end of every video, that all of you watching have learned a thing or two, or at the very least, been entertained in the process. Today, in this very long video, we're going to be taking a look at the past 42 videos, plus some honorable mentions. And we're going to highlight all the important bits, maybe some behind the scenes, give a little backstory, maybe glossing over some of the stuff that's not as important to this journey of mine, all in the hopes to show that at the end of the day, I'm just another guy with a car and a camera. I purchased the car on my 18th birthday from my lovely grandparents after their 12 long years of ownership. This was the car I rode to church in every Sunday, went on countless family road trips, and most importantly, the first car I ever rode in with heated seats. Blew my little 8-year-old mind. So when it came time to eventually replace the old family hauler, I convinced them with a lot of persuasion to let me purchase the car and carry on the legacy. And as my 18th birthday present, that's exactly what it was. The opportunity to purchase the car. Now, by the time I purchased the car, I had already been making goofy little videos for about 5 years by this point. I did some car stuff with car reviews. I did some goofy stuff with my friends, etc. I actually started the YouTube channel the summer going into my 8th grade year. I had been recording some stuff off and on for a couple years going up to this point, but we didn't have internet at my house, so I never actually uploaded anything. There are a lot of home videos and stuff of me just recording myself. But after buying the Magnum, I finally found my footing, and I guess you could say things were getting pretty serious. What do we? February 9th, 2020. As the first form of preventative maintenance on the car, I inevitably got a check engine light. Of course, it was after I purchased it. I had the car for a few months by this point and kind of wanted to figure out what I wanted to do with the car or what direction I wanted to go. However, this landmarks the first video on the Magnum. Now, I replaced the sensor on 3 separate occasions. We'll talk about those occasions a little bit later in this video. However, this was in competition for my most viewed video on the channel. It like swapped places with the V8 swapped S10 review I did on my buddy's pickup. But outside of that, nothing to really comment on. Editing, bad. Video presence, bad. That's about it. It was my first official video on the Magnum. February 16th, 2020. After getting my next check engine light for a cylinder misfire, I figured the first thing to look into were spark plugs. Now, the spark plugs and wires on this 175,000 mile engine were worn, to say the least. The plug wires were actually the original ones to the car, so there's that, I guess. As for the video itself, I got a comment about a year or two after uploading it saying that I didn't show anything in the video. And before I kind of rebuttal on comments like this, I'm glad I learned this at kind of a early start to the channel. When people comment stuff like this, I like to go back and re-watch the video just to see if maybe they missed something and I can timestamp it or keep it in mind, and that's something I can work on in the future. I got a little like, I'm gonna show this guy. So he comments, "You didn't show anything in the video, bad video," you know, that kind of thing. And so I go back and rewatch it. And sure enough, I didn't show shit in this video. It's me saying, now I'm going to replace the spark plugs. Jump cut. Hey, spark plugs are in. Cool. You didn't show how to do anything. Appreciate it, Jesse. And I didn't really record the spark plug wires getting changed because it was kind of tedious, honestly. And I didn't feel the need to record it. But essentially what you do, February 19th, 2020. Continuing with the misfire, I finally got the engine code scanned so I could get the actual P0 whatever code. And come to find out, it was the crankshaft position sensor, which in my mind was going to be horrible. It's the worst thing that could happen to a car. You've heard about all the horror stories. Nope, just drop the starter, you replace it. Not that big of a deal. This was another one that has been replaced twice. Now, as far as the video itself, I can happily say this is my most viewed video on the channel, currently sitting at just under 50,000 views. Quick side note, I did the math on the whole playlist, which all of the Magnum videos are in a playlist. This video will be included in said playlist. All of the videos from just my Magnum and nothing else is a good chunk of the views on my channel. I'm sitting at about 170,000 views just on the Magnum, so thank you guys. This was the last little bit of preventative maintenance and just bug fixing for the time being, and from here on, this is where the modification journey begins, foreshadowing at the end of this video. February 22nd, 2020. In this video, me and a buddy of mine take the Magnum to M&M Muffler and Brake here in Wichita, Kansas. Let's just say that Mike at M&M Muffler is going to make quite a few appearances in these videos. So, gonna go ahead and get it out of the way. Shout out M&M Muffler and Brake, any kind of exhaust or brake job or anything under the car alignment, they can take care of you. West Wichita, M&M Muffler and Brake. I did kind of like the sound that the mid muffler gave. It was almost exotic. But volume just wasn't really there for me. This is where the modding journey begins. March 1st, 2020. The next video in this modification journey of mine is moving on to the rear hatch, where I replaced the blown speakers with these very nice Rockford Fosgate 6x9s. These are a really good three-way speaker, and for under $100 is what I bought them for. I think they usually stay around that price too. Very, very nice. And actually, I like the sound of these speakers so much that I will sit in the back seat of the car sometimes just so I can hear the sound come out of those speakers. It's so crisp. It's wonderful. March 20th, 2020. VHT Nightshade. I don't regret doing very many things to the Magnum. I usually try to do a lot of research and stuff before doing any kind of mod to the car. This is definitely one of them. I do plan on making a YouTube short / TikTok at some point, kind of giving an update. Just don't do it. I do believe a big part of my issue with how bad these turned out, to be honest, was just in application. It was really, really cold. But even with other people that I've seen do it a little more professionally, do a little bit better setup, it still looks bad. If you're going to tint your taillights, which really you shouldn't. I was a dumb 18-year-old and I got my first cool car. And so I freaking rattle can the taillights with this nightshade bullshit. Don't do it. Just if you're going to tint your taillights, do it with window tint. Spend a little bit extra money and just do it right. March 27th, 2020. Replacing the rear spoiler. Nothing super noteworthy in the video. I filmed it with my best friend in the world. I think it's kind of funny, but it's just me swapping out the broken spoiler. So nothing crazy to write home about. Good video though. I think it's funny. April 10th, 2020. Yet another video that's honestly nothing really to write home about, other than the fact that I installed it wrong. I have never, up to this point, I had never installed any kind of sticker on a car in general, especially like these vinyl Cricut stickers. So I didn't know that the clear top layer was also supposed to come off until like way after filming this video. So I just rode around for weeks and weeks and weeks with just this crusty, cracked top clear layer of sticker. Still have it on the car though. I think it's neat. It's a little goofy, I'll admit, but I also don't see very many other people with it. So, you know, I guess there's that. April 24th, 2020. Dyno time. Big shout out to Wichita Dyno for making this video happen. And guess what? The oil pressure sensor makes another appearance in this video. Wow, crazy. The cheap $9 oil pressure sensor I bought off Amazon, believe it or not, went out after a couple weeks, I think, if that. So I replaced it in this video, mostly because I didn't want to show up to the dyno with check engine lights. So I was like, I'll just go ahead and replace it. And for the people that haven't seen the video, the car made 293 wheel horsepower. Now, accounting for 12 to 15% drivetrain loss, the weather was kind of ass, it wasn't super great. Those numbers can change on any given day. So let's just say just under 300 horsepower. Not bad for 180,000 miles. I guess not horrible, but humbling. May 8th, 2020. Look at that! Eminem muffler and brake again. Thanks, Mike. Now, I genuinely believe this video is proof that long-term veterans that do this stuff for a living know more than dumb 18-year-olds who just want to spend money on their car. I wanted to just straight pipe it straight out the back, throw a couple exhaust tips on it, call it a day. Mike said it was going to sound horrible, so he finally talked me into doing aero turbine resonators in place of where my mid muffler was, and then putting 4x18 echo tips going out the back. That way it could kind of open up that sound, and he said that that would make up for the volume that I lose from the resonator. And might I say, God, it sounds good. Because of these resonators that I put on the car and just the exhaust setup up to this point, I wholeheartedly believe in tone over volume any day of the week. And because of this, Mike, I am forever grateful. May 15th, 2020. So remember that whole thing about regrets? Cat's out of the bag. The clear engine bay is one of them. It's like, fine, it's neat. My biggest issue is just application. If this was on a car that sat in a garage and got drove on and off the trailer and used better hardware, I still have no clue why I used carriage bolts for some reason. If the engine bay didn't get very hot very often, this would be a great mod. And I like the idea of it still. It's just my execution could have been way better. So ever since making this video, I'm not a huge fan of how it looks. I'm sorry. May 22nd, 2020. It's a cold air intake install. You pop off the air hose, you put the new one on, you throw in your mass airflow sensor, and now you get cool noises whenever you're driving down the road. It should not have been a almost 10-minute long video, in my opinion. June 21st, 2020. Honorable mention number 1. Buying OEM sensors. So this was now the second time I had to replace the crankshaft position sensor and the third time I had to replace the oil pressure sensor. I can only speak on behalf of Dodge itself and just Hemis in general. Dodges are really weird when it comes to aftermarket sensors. So just the overarching theme of this video specifically, but my channel in general, buy once, cry once. I could have saved a couple $100 had I just bought the correct sensors in the first place rather than buying cheap ones, and especially time more than anything. Just buy OEM sensors and spend the extra money on nice things. September 11th and September 25th, 2020. Twofer. You get a double whammy on this entry. After chatting with my guy Mike over at M&M Muffler, thanks Mike again, I asked him how I could round out the sound and get rid of the little bit of low end rasp that the car had. I still had a little bit of just kind of tone noises that I wasn't really liking. And he said my only fix was going to be headers. So I found a set on Marketplace with the same buddy that was in the mid muffler delete video. I went and picked up some Scat Pack 392 factory manifolds, which are basically shorty headers, with 3-inch mid pipes. I gutted out the catalytic converters because I live in Kansas and I don't have to worry about it. Paid Mike to install them, and might I say, it sounds great. I would be willing to go out on a limb. Bold claim here. I personally believe that I have the best sounding Hemi I have personally ever heard. I've heard so many different 5.7s and Scat Packs and Hellcats. I'm part of a Dodge group. I'm part of a Magnum group. I'm part of modern Mopar groups all across the board. None of them sound as good as mine. I said it. There, I said it. The tone on this car, I have no rasp. It's just perfect. It's a perfect tone. And I love it. I love the way my car sounds, and I wouldn't change a thing about it. October 2nd, 2020. The wheels, the Ferrata FR2s. Fun fact, because of these wheels, I am actually more recognized just out and about or on car groups and stuff that don't realize it's me, the guy with the YouTube channel, because of these wheels. I think it's pretty cool. The video itself is pretty straightforward, but let me give you the backstory so you know how I landed on these wheels. Like I said a little bit ago, I've done pretty good on doing research, going into different modifications and stuff that I want to do, and making sure that I have a non-generic build, because I can't tell you how many times people in my Dodge groups, they'll get their Charger, they'll get a 300, and they'll put aftermarket rep Hellcat style wheels. The amount of modern Mopars with Hellcat style wheels blows my mind, and I wish it would stop. So I wanted to steer clear from this. So what I did is I started looking up different builds on Instagram, and I found a guy with a Challenger with Ferrata FR2s. It was a really nice bronze face, black lip, had the staggered setup with the deep dish in the rear. I thought it was gorgeous. 2 weeks later, I see a white Dodge Charger pull up into my Lowe's parking lot that I was working at with a staggered setup of bronze Ferrata FR2s. I found the guy that was driving it, and for weeks and weeks and weeks of perseverance, I bought them. And here we are today. I love the wheels to death, and I don't ever plan on swapping them out for the time being. November 20th, 2020. Hey guys, remember that whole thing earlier about regrets I've done to the car? Yeah, this is one of them. If I had a time machine, I would just tell my younger self, save up the money just a little bit longer and just buy coilovers. In the front, putting these lowering springs on the Bilstein Performance shocks was its only saving grace. However, I put the lowering springs in the rear with the OEM shocks from the factory, you know, with almost 200,000 miles at this point. And man, these springs ride horrible. But on a positive note, were it not for buying these springs, I wouldn't have done one of my favorite modifications to this car, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. Also, did this video really need to be almost 30 minutes long? It's lowering springs. I understand I go over quite a bit in the video, but Jesse, 30 minutes? January 8th, 2021. My beautiful girlfriend is a trooper, to say the least. Rolling over 200,000 miles, come to find out the car had also never had its transmission serviced before. It was kind of having a weird deal where, like, going into reverse, it would be really kind of sluggish and it wouldn't really go into gear. Shifting was also becoming kind of a problem, especially downshifting. I decided to go ahead and change the transmission fluid by myself with no drain plug. Dodge, Mercedes, because this is a Mercedes transmission. Mercedes, why didn't you put a drain plug on the transmission pan? I made a huge mess in my poor grandparents' driveway. And my girlfriend decided to try and help me, which she did. Great help. However, I can say with 100% confidence, she got dirtier than I did making this video. So, only thing to mention, goes without saying, thanks babe, love you. January 29th and February 12th, 2021. Twofer. You get a package deal this time, just like I did. So in buying the lowering springs, I also got iBox upgraded front and rear sway bars. I did the front sway bar video. That video was kind of bad in my humble opinion. Going back and rewatching all these videos has made me realize that I've gotten better, believe it or not. But man, the rear sway bar video, that's a good video. Especially for earlier Jesse that was still getting the hang of like editing and stuff. I think I still edited these on my phone if I'm not mistaken. Rear sway bar video, absolute banger. Front sway bar video, not bad, but I was also trying to dabble with doing voiceover stuff, but I didn't have an actual microphone, so I just talked into my phone. So, you know, it's whatever. But the reason I love these so much, this was by far the best modification I've done as far as handling is concerned. This did more than the lowering springs. This has done more than the upgraded struts that we will talk about here in just a minute. This has done more than my 11.5-inch wide tires. Doing this changed everything about the way the car felt around corners. Launching, it's a 4,500 pound station wagon. You're not going to get too much better than that. But going around corners, it stays very, very flat now. If I recommend anything, upgrading your sway bars. W move. February 27th, 2021. Sponsor time. Kinda. It's a pretty standard brake pad and rotor video, but this was actually the first time I ever reached out to a sales rep of any kind and actually got a response. I got a pretty good discount just by saying I have a YouTube channel. That was the first time this ever happened to me, and I thought I was on top of the world. This is another one that was an absolute game changer. If you want to change the way your car feels, especially like corners and stopping ability, a good set of rotors and pads will do a lot for you. I highly recommend just getting really nice brake pads before you do any kind of brake upgrading like Brembos and 4-piston and 6-piston. Buy really nice brake pads first and then start dabbling with the other stuff. April 3rd, 2021. Oh, you let the guard slip, Jesse. You're not supposed to do that. I'm not really one for self-diagnosis necessarily, so let's just say that past Jesse wasn't really having the best time in his life at this point between school and life in general. However, I finally joined a car group that was local to me, 316 Modern Mopar. Love you guys over there. Thank you for everything. And it actually kind of helped me get out and do more social things, which, believe it or not, I don't really do. I don't get out much. And especially still with the COVID stuff and dealing with the pandemic where everything was shut down, it was nice just to kind of get out and hang out with people. So if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be doing a lot better dentro de mi cabeza, you know, way up here. So thank you guys for everything. April 16th, 2021. All in all, W video. Not really a whole lot to mention in this video, other than the fact that at the time of filming this video, it just crossed 10,000 views. So, you know, extra W for that. However, we do have more foreshadowing from May 8th, 2021. Out of my 9 pages of notes that I wrote for this video, this was the only one where I literally just wrote unscripted. I'm going to try to keep this as raw but professional as possible. Coming up on almost 3 years since the whole Danko reproductions fiasco, unfortunately, a short while after I made my video, Danko did go out of business. I am not going to claim really any part of that because none of my videos got enough traction for it to really affect their business that much. To make a very, very, very long story short, which I will link the video, my kind of buyers beware video that I made. I put in my part order for the front lip on my car that you can see at the end of my headlight video. I put in my order on Black Friday of 2020. And remember, hold on, let me look at my notes. It said on their website that it was like a 4 to 6 week lead time. So I was like, okay, maybe beginning of the year, you got to remember holidays, that kind of thing. And after a lot of back and forth and a lot of being lied to, and again, everything is well documented in the video. I didn't just go on a rant. I brought receipts and I brought proof for everything that I said in the video. After, I think, 5 months, the lady on the phone finally said, we're just going to go ahead and expedite your order, so we will get started on it right away. And all I could think was, get started on it? You've had my order and you've had my money for 5 months now. What do you mean, get started on it? Meaning that had I not said anything, it probably could have been 6+ months before they even began to look at the order that I put in. So again, my videos didn't get a whole lot of traction. They made really good products. I guess if we're going to end this on a positive note, horrible customer service, horrible customer care. They make really good, high-quality products, though. So it's really unfortunate that they went out of business, but what can you do, you know? All right, off my soapbox. On to the next one. June 11th and July 23rd, 2021. Hey, look, we're back on my tutorial trend. Nothing really to write home about, especially with the tie rod video. It's a pretty standard take apart and put it back together video. But I'm gonna come clean. I'm a fraud. I know. For the parking brake video, I didn't realize it until well after the fact, which I did end up fixing in a video we'll talk about later. The little part where the hook comes through and it latches onto the cable, that way when you push in your parking brake, it actually pulls apart the shoes and it presses up against the inner drum of the brake rotor. Apparently, I didn't install that, so even after filming this video, the parking brake still didn't work. But I also never use my parking brake really, so it didn't really affect me a whole lot. So there's a gentleman that actually commented on the video and said, hey, you put the thing in wrong. And as soon as he commented that, that's when I realized, oh, that's probably why it doesn't work. So like I said, I fixed this in a later video, so we will address that here in just a minute. December 10th, 2021. Eyelids. I went back and forth on whether or not I wanted to do this thing to my car and whether or not I wanted to film a video on it just in case it turned out bad and I wasn't a huge fan of it. And remember the whole thing about regrets? This ain't fucking one of them, man. I love this modification so much. So much, in fact, that I actually went through the effort when I got the new headlights in a video we'll talk about here in a minute. I went through the process of taking them off of my old ones and transferring them to the new ones. It looks so damn tough. The paint matches the body perfectly, and God, is it aggressive. To the point where every time I see a Magnum without eyelids, which has been every time in person anyway, it almost looks goofy. You got these wide eyes looking at you like this, and then you got mine, and it's got the, you know, it kind of reminds me of like the shitty Jeep Wrangler grills, but it's different. It's okay though. God, I love these eyelids so much. Plus, at the very end of this video, and because of me filming this video in my college parking lot, I ended up getting the best picture of my car to this day. It is my favorite picture I have ever taken of this car. January 25th, 2022. I'm gonna say it. I'm a fraud again. I'm sorry, I know. But this time it's okay because I actually talk about it in the video itself. So what I say in the video is that I purchased the wrong Taylor Shorty wires whenever I replaced them on my car, and they did look really, really good, and I really liked them. However, I bought the wrong ones. I bought the ones that are too thin, and so they didn't carry enough voltage, and it caused really bad misfires. The computer kind of messed up or whatever. So you're supposed to get the thicker 10 millimeter runs rather than the really thin 8 millimeter ones, which unfortunately I never ended up doing. I just returned them, put the factory wires back on, called it a day. But like I said, I mentioned it at the end of the video, so everything's fine. Coast is clear. But what you didn't see is the reason there's a big cut in the video is because when I installed them in my college parking lot, the car just wouldn't start. And I was like, well, shit, because I still had class and stuff that I needed to go to. So I was filming these videos in between classes. That's a whole other story. So in me installing this in the college parking lot, my car then didn't start. So it's a good thing I still had the old wires. Now, of course, before we end the video, we have to see how she runs. So when I got home that day, I put the new wires back on the car, did a couple little key dances, and then it started. I made sure the boots were seated, all that stuff. Car started, drove around the block a little bit, still ran fine. So I said, okay. I was driving to work, and literally a block away from my job at the time, the car dies right at the intersection. And man, I was in the left turn lane. People were honking at me because the light was turning green, but I couldn't go anywhere. I tried restarting it a couple different times just to see if I could at least make it into like a parking lot or something. A cop saw me as I was sitting there. I had my hazards on. I had my hood up trying to mess with the boots and stuff there in traffic. The cop came over, and then we finally called a tow truck. Tow truck drove me all the way back home. They backed me off the tow truck, and guess what? The car started. But it didn't start for very long. I threw the old wires back on. I ended up being like a couple hours late to work. So if you are going to put Taylor Shorty wires on your car, especially an 05 Hemi, buy the thick ones. Or if you're going to do this in general, spend a little bit of extra money and just buy the thick ones. Again, if you haven't noticed the main theme of this car/channel, you get what you pay for. Just spend the little extra money on something nice rather than the cheap one that ends up leaving you stranded. Next video. February 19th, 2022. The vinyl flooring. Oh boy. I loved having this on my car, and it was kind of just one of those touches that pretty much everybody liked. However, I took that extra step, I went the extra mile, and I cut out the herringbone pattern, which looked sick. But because I was using vinyl and because I was pulling stuff in and out of the trunk, because I had to pull it in and out of the trunk quite a bit, it ended up curling on the edges and I couldn't get the pieces to lay in with each other anymore. So not gonna lie, a while back, that you will see in a future video, like coming later on the channel, I did have to throw it away, unfortunately. So if I were to go back, I would do the herringbone again, 1,000,000%, but I would try and do it a lot cleaner than the way I installed it, and more than anything, I would use actual hardwood rather than vinyl, just to kind of avoid that. April 9th, 2022. The hood release cable. Overall, pretty good video in my humble opinion. It was a pain to install, that's for sure, but more than anything, just make sure you adjust your hood latch correctly. Otherwise, your hood either won't shut all the way or it'll shut too hard and you'll never be able to pop it back open. Ask me how I know. July 2nd, 2022. The drag racing video. Yeah. So Wichita actually held an annual event for a couple years before the track ended up getting shut down, unfortunately, where they had the Wichita Police Department come out and bring their cruisers to the drag race. And you got to drag race cops if, you know, your spot in line ended up working out. I didn't get to race a cop, unfortunately. I didn't want to open up a can of whoop ass on a Ford Explorer, but I ran an 8th mile, got to hang out with a few friends, a couple family members, but overall just had a really good time. And for those of you that didn't watch the video, I ran 10 seconds in the 8th mile. Dog water. October 21st, 2022. The rebirth. I actually consider the rebirth of my channel to be September 30th when I put the Bronco wheels on my truck, also a W video, might I add. But this is when I started putting a lot more planning into my videos, as you can see here, especially with thumbnails. My thumbnails always just kind of used to be an afterthought. I would, you know, maybe snap a quick image if I remembered. I would throw it into some free Photoshop app on my phone, throw a couple words on there, call it a day. But this is when I actually started taking it a lot more serious as far as the planning was concerned, and I have definitely reaped the benefits of this, especially from like a learning aspect. I've learned a lot more about YouTube and just how to make a good video since September 30th, or in this case, October 21st of 2022. So just over a year ago. But this is when I installed the Bilstein shocks in the rear of the car. And if I haven't drilled it in yet, you get what you pay for. That's all I'm gonna say. If you wanna see it, go back and rewatch the video. But you get what you pay for. November 5th, 2022. Side molding, yeah. Nothing I can really say that the video itself doesn't. The trim was falling off my car, so I decided to just go ahead and debadge the whole thing. Turned out really, really clean, but a lot of paint did peel up with it, which gives me an excuse to finally respray the car at some point. So, on to the next video. November 19th, 2022. W video alert. This is when I replaced the alternator on my car, and man, the script for this video is definitely one of my more proud scripts that I've written for one of these. I love the way this video turned out. So if you're gonna go back and rewatch any of them that I've talked about up to this point, this is definitely one of them. I love this video so much. W video. However, unfortunately, I do have an update on said alternator coming up in what could possibly just be the next video or maybe the one after that. So go ahead and turn on your post notifications. That way you get notified for said video. January 15th, 2023. W video alert again. This was the fuel pump video on my car, and it's a pretty standard, again, you take it apart, you put it back together. But what you don't see, and this is definitely one of those key examples of you have to make a video look significantly better than it is to do in real life, mostly just for pacing sake and just keeping the video pretty simple and pretty easy to wrap your head around rather than making it 45 minutes long. It doesn't need to do all of that. But what you don't see is the fact that I had to miss 2 days of work because of this video, because somehow I messed up my research going into doing the repair, and I accidentally ended up replacing the sending unit because it's a saddle style fuel tank. So there's the fuel pump that's on the driver's side and the sending unit that's on the passenger side. And I actually had to flip it in the video. That way I can show replacing the fuel pump before I show replacing the sending unit, just for making it pretty linear. But yeah, replace the sending unit, which ended up costing me a couple $100 extra that I didn't need to spend. Smashing our hands because we couldn't get the ring removal tool in time. So as I say in the video, you could just take a screwdriver or like a punch and just punch the ring off with a hammer. Smashed our fingers. Again, freezing cold outside. The camera ended up getting knocked over and like cracked my. It was a whole ordeal. Let's just say the filming of this video and all the stuff you don't see, like damn near had me in tears because of just frustration, exhaustion, etc. But it made for a pretty good video, if I do say so myself. You live and you learn. February 4th, 2023. I, just like many other people, need music. It's basically just a form of outlet for me. I have to listen to music of some kind. So when I went to go turn up my music after starting my car and heard that it was only coming out of the front 2 speakers and not all 6 of them, considering this was right after the whole fuel pump debacle, let's just say I was kind of over working on my car for a little bit. So I did a little research, and that's when I found out that the factory amp went out. And that was also the same night that I found out that people are charging buku dollars for them online. And so I showed an eBay listing where it was $200 for some reason. So the next day, I had the day off, coincidentally, and I went to LKQ Pick Your Part, and I spent a few hours over there digging through every LX platform car I could find, and I grabbed the only 2 factory amps that were in the entire junkyard. With that being said, I then proceeded to stay up until like 1 o'clock in the morning in the freezing rain. I was soaking wet. I kind of show it in the video, but it does no justice, obviously. And when I finally got everything buttoned back up and I turned the car on and the sound came back on, you could not capture my excitement through the camera that I use. There's no way. I kind of just needed a win, and this definitely did it for me. Also, I still have the second amp that I bought, so if anybody needs a factory amp for any kind of LX platform car, 300 Magnum Charger Challenger, hit me up. And just hit me up on Instagram, and I'll just send it to you, honestly. March 20th, 2023. The head unit install. Pretty good video, nothing super duper major, but it was a gift from my beautiful girlfriend, so shout out her. Still have the head unit in my car, and I love it to death, and I highly recommend it. But I'm a fraud. I know, stop reminding me. No, there's an extra module whenever I was doing the wiring and stuff for the steering wheel controls. That way you can still turn up and down the volume and that kind of thing. But the problem is you have to switch over according to what brand of head unit you're running. So I did that. I ran it over to Pioneer. I threw everything back together. But the problem is I didn't actually reset the module to say I'm running a Pioneer head unit. So to this day, my steering wheel controls still don't work. But Honestly, I'll move my hand a foot to turn up and down the volume. It's not that big of a deal. April 3rd, 2023. Did somebody say W video alert? I'm sure the joke's over by this point. Giving a big ol' shout out to currently my most disliked video on my channel, the 6-minute rant on Spider Halo headlights. But these headlights, gangster. Todd Larsh, gangster. This is up there with some of my favorite mods I've done to the car cosmetically. I would almost be willing to trade these headlights in combination with my eyelids for having to never buy my Ferrata FR2s. If I had to stick with the factory wheels for the rest of my life, but keep these headlights and my eyelids, it would be a toss-up, not gonna lie. So for all the people that are ragging on me for my Spider Halo headlights video, which is a lot, by the way. So I made a video a little over a year ago about Spider Halo headlights. And a lot of you were very vocal on how you felt about my opinion of Spider Halo headlights. This is how you actually put halos on your car. June 2nd, 2023. This one kind of stinks that it didn't do super duper well on views, and I understand why. The subject matter is kind of boring. It's the belly pan to my car. It got ripped apart because it was really windy. A semi blew by. It ripped it out from underneath my car. It's whatever. But I tried spinning it so that it was also a really funny video. So if you want to try and go towards like the underrated videos on my channel, this is definitely up there towards the top. Outside of that, nothing super crazy. I'm just replacing another part on my car. July 26th, 2023. Carbon fiber. This is my favorite video I have ever made. Hands down. Plus, I got my first official sponsor. Kinda. I got the carbon fiber struts, the hood struts and the rear hatch struts for free, so I'll take it. But I will say I have unironically watched this video and rewatched this video a few times since publishing it, just because of how proud I am of how it turned out. I really push myself to just make good videos, especially since this whole, kind of rebirth era of my channel. This is my favorite video I have ever made. I know you're not really supposed to pick favorites and be like, oh, all of them are good videos. Fuck that. This is my favorite video I have ever made, is the carbon fiber video. If you never watch another video on my channel, the carbon fiber video. It's towards the top. It's at the top for me. Also, the whole thing of the rear hatch falling on my elbow, that was legit. And I still, to this day, have no clue why I did it in the first place and how I didn't break my arm. My elbow, I'm going to try and do this one-handed. It swelled up like, I'll just, for those of you that are queasy, look away really quick. But here's the video I took of my elbow after the fact, and the whole underside was just bruised like crazy. And even still then, I might have had some kind of hairline fracture of some sort in there because my elbow hurt for weeks following this video. But it's worth it though. October 29th, 2023. The SRT rear end. This one fought me. This was the first video I ever filmed where I had a lot of planning going into it. I knew I wanted to film this video, especially because the axle seal started leaking and it caused the insides to kind of start like crunching and grinding, and just it was chirping really bad. It needed to be replaced. So I figured this was a perfect time of any to go ahead and just drop the rear end and put a higher gear ratio, put the SRT rear end with the Brembo brakes, and ended up being a really, really good modification in my eyes, especially for the money. Like, all things said and done, the tuner did make it a little expensive overall, but the tuner can also, I use that in the next video we're going to talk about. So it's kind of okay in that sense. And I can use the tuner for other things. I can retune other cars. I can, use it as an ECU scanner. I can clear engine codes. There's a lot more to that tuner. So minus the tuner, it ended up costing me, I think, $1,100. It was $1,000 for the rear end and then $100 for the new CV axle. On the subject of the CV axle, that was mistake number one. Yeah, when I say this video fought me, and there were a few times where I definitely felt like I bit off more than I could chew, including the week vacation where I was in Colorado. My car ended up being on jack stands for, I think, almost 3 weeks, which was very depressing. I kind of just got to a point where I just wanted my car back. But the biggest issue I had was, number one, the drive shaft. So the big issue was it's a yoke drive shaft. It's not like a U-joint. It's kind of a little flex plate. It's a little rubber disc that is used as a damper. And the one coming off of my original rear end is a 3-spline yoke. I talk about it in the video. It's a 3-spline yoke, and the one on the new differential is a 4-spline. So at first I wanted to see if I could just take that yoke off and put it on the new one, because I really did not want to drop the drive shaft. That was the last thing I wanted to do. But we just couldn't get it off. I special ordered a socket to try and take off the big nut that's on the front of it. It ended up being the wrong size, and I tried seeing if maybe I could just take off the rubber damper itself and maybe fitting it up that way. And after I realized the socket was the wrong size, in pretty much a fit of rage, I ended up just dropping the drive shaft and dropping the whole exhaust system, and I just was like, whatever. And so I just did it all. And because of that, I ended up not filming any of it. So it is what it is. But then the other problem was the CV axle. I did not realize that the SRT rear ends have different CV axles than the regular RT and SXT. And what I'm assuming is just the base model rear end. They have a different CV axle. It's thicker, and I think it's actually forged rather than cast, but I could be wrong. But I think it's a forged CV shaft rather than like extruded or something. So it ends up being a harder CV shaft, and because of that, it's different, meaning mine was never gonna fit. But that also means I didn't realize that until my rear end was already dropped and out from underneath of the car. So with my car, 2 feet in the air, the whole rear end is already taken out. I'm having these drive shaft issues. I'm having the problems with the CV axles, and both of these things were requiring me to order parts online. I had to wait for them to come in, so then I'm just kind of in a limbo section where I can't do anything, which is pushing back filming. And that's when I went on break, and with my vacation and everything, it was just a nightmare. So when I got everything buttoned back together and I finally got in my car and I was super excited to just start it and run it, it was great. I put it in drive, and then the car goes in limp mode. It won't shift out of second gear, and it won't go above like 35, 40 miles an hour. It just cuts ignition, it cuts everything, and I can't do anything. And of course, it's because the ECU doesn't recognize the rear gearing. It's basically telling the transmission, whoa, these tires are not spinning fast enough for the RPM that we are going. So because of that, I then had to buy the tuner. That, again, I will talk about in this last little section after this. So everything said and done, it's been a very good modification to the car. and it pulls like a freight train. But buying the tuner allowed me to film December 20th, 2023. Did somebody say W video alert? It's the last one, I promise. Banger, 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 banger. This was a banger of a video. It's pretty straightforward all in all. I tune the car and I do 0 to 60 times just to double check it. But my planning going into this, it was great because everything played out exactly how I planned it to, which I think was the big frustrating part of the previous video with the SRT rear end. I put a lot of planning into that video, but everything kept going wrong as I was doing it. So because of that, I ended up having to go off script and the video just wasn't turning out as good as I wanted it to. But this video went perfectly according to plan. And on top of that, shaving off over half a second for 15 minutes worth of work. Oh my God. I know I said it pulled like a freight train before with the new rear gearing and bumping up from 2.83 to 3.06. When it shifts from first to second, it's like warp speed. And as far as my thoughts go, holy sh... Fair enough. And that is going to wrap up the progress on the Dodge Magnum thus far. There's always going to be more videos, and I have big stuff coming for 2024. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. Turn on post notifications so you can see everything that I upload in the future. Go ahead and buy yourself some Shag and Wagon merchandise while you're at it. Help support the channel, help support these big things that are coming. And let's just say that some big plans are underway. So stay tuned for that as well. And again, as previously mentioned, this and all of the videos that I've talked about so far are in a playlist. I'm going to go ahead and link that down below. I'll probably go ahead and just put it at the end of the video. So if you ever want to go on a channel binge, just turn on the playlist and watch me from beginning to end. And I promise you the progression is second to none, if I say so myself. So if you'd like to go ahead and watch that playlist, go ahead and click here. If you'd like to subscribe, click here. And as always, I look forward to seeing you guys next time.